What is a CCH 360? It's a partnership of people using martial arts, techniques, and other health-related arts to explore healing modalities, using personal tools and processes useful for self-care and healthy personal development. So that's where we're at, Jonathan. Essentially, is we're trying to find and put some things out that are going to be useful for anybody who wants to accept them. Sifu Lester is founder of CCH 360 and Tai Chi Connections. He teaches out of Fort Lauderdale. And Pam Dye is founder of Forever Tai Chi, and she teaches out of Freeport, New York. And my name is Dan Tracy, and I'm founder of Martial Arts in Motion, and I teach out of Wisconsin and seasonally in Titusville, Florida. So where my wife and I are snowbirds down there. As far as where to find us, we are on Facebook at CCH 360, Constantly Connecting Humanity 360, on YouTube at CCH 360, and our webpage is partially launched. It's a work in progress, and that is consciouslyconnectinghumanity.com. So today we are going to be talking to Dr. Jonathan Fields. Dr. Fields is a practitioner of chiropractic medicine, martial arts, Qigong, Tai Chi, and I think a few others I probably don't have on there, but he can explain that to us. He has a family and a couple kids, and it sounds like you've got a lot going, Dr. Fields. So if you'd like to go ahead and explain some more, please go ahead.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the lovely introduction. Small correction there. My doctorate and my master's is actually in acupuncture and Eastern medicine. I am not a chiropractor. Fantastic. I was trained in some Tui Na and some body work, but that's not my specialty. So I'll leave that to my colleagues that do specialize in that. But yes, thank you for having me. I really appreciate the everybody's time, and it's an honor to be on with you all and get to learn a little bit about what some of you guys do as well. So, like you mentioned, I have a practice in South Florida. I'm in Coral Springs, Florida, and I have another clinic in West Boca, where my wife and I practice acupuncture and functional medicine. For those who aren't familiar with functional medicine, we basically read people's lab work, and we deal with kind of chronic, long-term, everything from autoimmune issues to other chronic diseases that are not getting resolved with traditional medicine. So very similar to what we do with the acupuncture. It's a very holistic model where we look at every system in the body and we look to try and identify the root causes. So we mix the combination of the Eastern medicine with the functional, which is basically the newest cutting edge nutritional science from the Western medicine side, right? And then we get people the right macronutrients, micronutrients, specific genetic tests or stool samples, much more advanced testing that your typical doctor would order for you if it is necessary. And then in addition to that, we do bioidentical hormones, aesthetics, medical weight loss, peptides, IV therapy, vitamin injections, and all that kind of stuff. That's on the clinical side. We're in the process of expanding the clinics now. And if anybody's interested in those clinics, you can find one in Coral Springs, Tamarack area is Integrative Medicine US, and that can be found at imedicineus.com or at imedicineus. The letter I, Medicine US, is in the United States, and the other one is CR8 Health, like Create Health. So it's just the letter C, the letter R, the number 8 Health. So that's createhealth.com or at CR8 Health. But other than that, on the martial arts side, I am with a school called Lost Legacy, founded by Grandmaster Jean Legrand. He goes as Phoenix. I've been training with him for almost 20 years. Around that same time, I started training with my Qigong master, who was the first person who introduced me to the Eastern medicine and a lot of these healing modalities, who is George Xavier Love, who has been a Qigong master and acupuncturist for probably 35 plus years now as well. So over the last 20 years, I've kind of developing these skills alongside with the medical background and kind of incorporated it into my life and into some of our students' lives. And it's led me to where I'm at today. No problem.
Jonathan, I want to ask about your background in traditional Chinese medicine.
Mhm.
How long ago was that? Were you actually introduced?
Yeah, so I was introduced almost 20 years ago by Dr. George Love, around the time I started studying with Master Legrand with the Lost Legacy Systems of Martial Arts, probably around 2003, 2004. I had met Dr. George Love, and he had taught me his Qigong system, which is the Blue Dragon Qigong system. And I found it to be extremely powerful and very effective in my personal life, and helped me develop, I think, both personally and professionally. And then every time I would get injured training martial arts, 'cause we are pretty much we're traditional, but we mix a lot of different styles into our system. So it's not we're still wearing gis and uniforms and things like that and showing respect. But it is a mixed bag of styles at our school. So we were doing a lot of sparring, a lot of fighting, a lot of jujitsu, wrestling, judo. So I was getting injured a lot, and the acupuncture was very, very effective for me on a muscular skeletal side. So between the acupuncture and the qigong, I think it really helped me stay healthy and avoid disease and other injury for quite a while, as best as I could. Over time, I think eventually it caught up on to me, and I do a lot less sparring and rolling now. I think that's just kind of a natural progression. I'll be 44 soon, so I think you all have a few years on me. So I think everybody's kind of been there, and one of the reasons we, head even more into the internal arts, even though they were always part of my repertoire, or at least for the last 20 years, I think, we kind of headed more in that direction. But yeah, the background was, so I spent years just fascinated with the Eastern medicine, and I studied with Dr. George Love, and I attended his seminars, and eventually I was helping him teach his seminars, and I would intern with him in his clinic and just absorbed as much as I could. And then about 12, 15 years ago, 12, 13 years ago, I got really, really sick to the point where I was disabled. I couldn't work anymore. I couldn't train anymore. I could barely sit in a chair. I couldn't do anything. I mean, I was having fatigue, depression, systemic joint pain, tendonitis, carpal tunnel, back pain and neck pain so bad I really couldn't do anything anymore. And I spent a whole year going from doctor to doctor to doctor, and getting every exam, and saw neurologists and hand surgeons and orthopedics and chiros, all sorts of different doctors. And they basically told me, oh, it's all in your head. Here's some muscle relaxers and here's some pain pills. And I knew that wasn't going to be an option. I knew that wasn't going to fix anything. And eventually, a friend of mine who I share one of my clinic spaces with now, by the name of Reed Eckert, who is a formulary. He actually invents vitamins and works with MDs to come up with new formulas. I walked in his shop one day, and we had been friends for a while. And the first thing he says to me is, "You look like crap." So I tell him the whole story. He says, "Don't worry, I'm going to get you better." I don't believe him, because I've already seen a dozen doctors. They can't do anything for me. I'm like, you sell vitamins. What are you going to do? Right. But he put me on a different diet plan. He put me on some nutrients. He put me with a good chiropractor, and it was life changing. Within a few weeks, I was already beginning to improve. No more hot flashes, chills, no more fatigue, no more depression. Gone like that. And then between the chiropractor and the acupuncture and the dietary changes, within probably 6 to 8 months, I was almost 100% better. And having experienced and lived through that myself, I now had a newfound appreciation for what it's like to be sick. I was in my very early 30s at the time, and I had never been injured or sick before. So you can't really imagine what it's like being at a young age, or from a doctor that's never been sick. You really just don't have that empathy for patients to understand. And at that time, I knew two things. I knew I couldn't go back to live in the same lifestyle that got me there, which was overtraining. I had tried to go vegan a couple of times. Didn't work out for my body type. Now that may work fantastic for Sifu Lester, right? It might work very well for for Sifu Dr. Love, who introduced me to the lifestyle. It didn't work well for my body type. So I had to make these adjustments. I was overtraining, overworking, and I knew I needed to get a whole new lifestyle. So I decided at that point, it was almost like a calling from up above, right? From the heavens. Like Tian opened up and beamed that light down on me and told me, now is the time. You've been interested in the Eastern medicine all this time. Now you don't have a choice anymore. Now you have to go back. And I went back and did my bachelor's, my master's, and my doctorate. I've spent months at a time in China, living and training over there. Spent months living at the Shaolin Temple, training with the Shaolin monks over there, and studying and interning in hospitals over there as well. My master's and my doctorate was done here, but extracurricular, I studied a lot over there, and I'm still learning. I'm still doing, seminars daily and picking up new information, and that's kind of what helped transform. So after having my own period of extreme sickness and disability, that made me want to help other people in my shoes, and also realize how effed up our medical system is, right? I mean, I was 30 years old, 31 years old. I had health insurance. I live in America. I'm in South Florida. I should be able to get good care. And I couldn't. And, and the care was just, I felt like the providers were disrespectful and, trivializing the condition. If they can't quantify it in their test results, they just kind of blow you off, like, go home, it's anxiety, whatever, here's some pain pills, go home and die. And I didn't find that to be acceptable. So, and that's where I'm here now, and that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Well, that's fantastic. When you went to China, what location in China did you go to? And I know you said to the temple, but China's a big country. So
yes, it is.
Tell us a little bit about that, please.
So my first time visiting China was just as a tourist, and I kind of found it fascinating. I was just in Beijing for a few days, and then after a couple years of already being in the Eastern Medicine school, I actually organized a group of students. I took 9 students with me from the school and kind of spearheaded a trip to the original Shaolin Temple in Henan province in Dengfeng. So my Shifu over there, the only academy that I would have found that had any interest in medicine in almost the whole country. I mean, I must have emailed a few dozen schools and try to correspond with different schools and say, listen, I want to study Kung Fu, but I'm also, going to be an Eastern medicine doctor. I want some appreciation for the medicine. I want, to get a deeper understanding beyond what's a little bit superficial, what they teach here. And not necessarily, but, they practice differently in China. Let's just say that way. So I finally found a school that was interested in the medicine and had their appreciation and was willing to take us on and we went and we stayed. My Shifu actually had an academy within the Shaolin Temple Park grounds. So not in the city, not in Dengfeng. They were actually walking, like maybe 5-minute walking distance from the actual temple grounds. And we stayed at the academy for about a month, and we studied about 8 hours of Kung Fu a day. And then every day we'd spend a couple hours studying medicine with some of the monks from the temple, or they would bring in other doctors to teach us. And it was just a super transformative experience. It was incredible. And then the next year, we went back again, just 3 of us, my wife and another close friend of mine. And we spent 6 weeks in China the next year. And my Shifu had since then moved his school from Shaolin Temple Henan to, he basically had helped open another Shaolin Temple in Yunnan province, which is in the south, which is very beautiful. It's on the border with Vietnam. One of the cleaner places. A lot of the herbs come from there. Yunnan Baiyao, if anybody's familiar with that, is the topical for bruises and for bleeding and that kind of things. And the pu'er tea comes from there. So he had a temple there, and they were in Millet Temple. And we spent a few weeks there living with the monks and training there. And then he moved. At that time, I guess the local authorities didn't want them staying there. They didn't want international travelers. They were worried about terrorism or whatever. So they basically kicked us out of that city. And then we spent another few weeks on the rice paddies right on the border, and the Hung He rice terraces, which was incredible. We were training in the clouds every day, and these little villages that, the power would be in and out all the time. And, there was no city or no town for miles. And then after that, we spent another week back in Beijing training with a Meiwa Zhuang master, doing some plum blossom Kung Fu. And then we spent another week or 2 in Beijing at Gulo Hospital, which was the first hospital to open up after the revolution, when they re-allowed traditional Chinese medicine back in. And it was actually founded by descendants of the imperial doctors who used to treat the emperor. So it's an amazing learning experience. And I probably would have been back at least a couple times since, but with the pandemic and everything, the whole country was shut down. They just reopened, and my Shifu has once again moved to Chengdu province. So I'm looking forward to getting out to Chengdu and seeing the new temple and seeing the new location, and visiting some of our friends in Beijing at the hospital, and going back. But now I have 2 young ones at home, so travel's a little more difficult than before my wife and I were encumbered.
You have to go.
Yeah, this is one question. This is a very difficult question, I know. With a man such as yourself wearing so many hats, man, if it was just one thing that you could leave back for humanity to use and to help push humanity forward, what would that one thing be?
Wow, that's pretty deep. Um, just one, huh? Number one, I would have to say definitely just, cleaning up the diet. And you know this, right? Because you live this by example. I think all of us need to go way more plant-based. I don't think your diet is going to work for everybody. Like I said, it didn't work for me, although I am mostly plant-based. It was unhealthy for me. But I think generally just to go more organic, more plant-based, more local raised foods, I think that is by far the most important and would have the largest reaching impacts. I would love to say qigong or meditation or just a positive mindset, but without the dietary, I mean, that's number one. That's your fuel source, right? The car cannot go anywhere without gas. And if you put the wrong gas, if you put diesel in your gasoline powered car, it ain't going nowhere, right? Except for the shop, because it's gonna be broken. And yeah, that's it. I think just more fruits, more vegetables, less processed food, more organics. Even if they're a little more expensive, they're not as expensive as the hospital.
Yeah.
It's not as expensive as doctor's bills, right? More fasting, right? All that good stuff. More water. Eliminate everything else. Just drink water. Some teas occasionally are good, and some other beverages are okay. But for the most part, I think that would be it. Is our Gucci, right? That's in Chinese medicine, the Gu Qi is the food, the qi that you make from the grains and from the water, and your spleen and stomach converts that into clear yang, and then that rises up into your to meet your heart and your lung qi, your zhang qi, which is your central qi from the heart and the lung. So the oxygen and the heavenly qi comes down, right, and the earthly qi, the yin qi, comes up from the belly, the gu qi, and meets in the zhang qi, and then that is your zheng qi, which is your original or your true qi. It's a combination of your breath, right, and the foods and the water and that you're drinking and eating.
Appreciate that, brother. Yes, thank you.
Yes, sir. Great question. You put me on the spot there. The best way is just look me up on either Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn. If you just search for Jonathan M. Fields, all one word. So it's JONATHAN, M as in Matthew, Fields, FIELDS. So just one word, Jonathan M. Fields. You pop that up on Instagram or LinkedIn, it should come right up, and you'll be able to find, or Facebook. Those are probably the easiest ways. And